everyone, I'm Cassidy Jensen, a licensed professional counselor.
And I'm Grace Allspaw, a licensed marriage and family therapist. And we are both owners of our own therapy practices and passionate about the world of therapy.
This is Two View Therapy, the podcast.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, we are just scraping together ourselves as this is the first episode we've done back together
In a month.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think we both appreciated the hiatus of not having to record.
Yeah.
But I did not appreciate you not being here.
Yeah. My dad said something about you, and I was like, I haven't really talked, but it seems sad.
Yeah.
He was like, oh. It's like, yeah. I didn't really talk to anybody.
I didn't want to bother you. I didn't know if you were having like a really like revelating spiritual self experience. I don't know how else to describe it. Like really self-reflective, just grounding experience in Florida.
There was some of that. There was also some not of that. Yeah, it was a unique time for sure. And I'm really glad to be back with my people.
Mm-hmm.
Though now I also have people there. So,
yeah,
both and. It was nice to get away for a time and experience life outside of my bubble here.
Yeah.
Not what I had planned, but it was especially eye-opening for me to see literal destruction.
Yeah, because you were right in the heart of, because you were delayed leaving because of first hurricane. And then you had to dabble, I think it was the week you got there with the next hurricane, because you ended up going to Georgia.
Yeah, I got there on a Sunday, and not the next day, Monday, but the following Monday, I evacuated to Georgia. So a little over a week after I got there, I evacuated.
Yeah, I was like, what a hell of a time to go.
Yeah. Picked just like the most wonderful.
The worst time ever, really.
That the area that I was in hasn't gotten hit by a hurricane in 100 years.
Oh,
that specific area. So no expectation for them to really have destruction like that. But yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah, we haven't really talked about what you saw. So what did it look like? I don't know if you just drove through or you were staying in because your first Airbnb got flooded out.
Yeah. So first Airbnb, I actually did drive by. The neighborhood they were in, their property seemed pretty cleaned up. I can imagine though he came in pretty hot because I talked to him. Him and his dad own the property together, so they came in, I think, but you could see in the windows, and it was just a shell, like nothing in it anymore.
So they worked fast.
Yeah, which I didn't go and look at that one until my last week there.
So maybe
they had some time. And so FEMA deals with natural disasters, and they have told people there that it could be a year before they get everything cleaned up off the road.
Oh, wow.
And so some people are like, I don't want to deal with that. And so they're hauling it off themselves.
Okay. Where are they hauling it to? Do you know?
There's somewhere, I don't remember if I think it's like a public parking area.
Okay.
And then like the trash, like here in Derby, there's a place you can take trash if you don't have trash service, whatever. And so I think people are taking it there.
Okay.
And there's just a massive pile.
Oh, I'm sure. I mean, I've seen the videos where like the streets are pretty much sandy, and on either side you have boats that have been grounded.
Yeah. My dad flew out to drive back with me, which I'm super grateful for. I could have done the drive myself, but with the dog and just like hotels and whatever, it was nice to have someone with me both there and back. And he went with one of our friends one day. We went separate directions that day and came back. We had dinner together, and he's like, I saw a car on top of probably 10 feet of sand today. Like,
wow.
Sand had just piled, and a car had floated and landed there. And then when the water went back, the car ended up staying. So just like sand everywhere. People have had to pull out their homes and take everything out. So basically, I learned a lot while I was there that I didn't know about hurricanes. If
Well, I mean, we have tornadoes.
we have tornadoes. Yeah. So you have to go through your house after it happens, and basically you take a Sharpie and you mark how high the water went, and everything below leaves.
Oh, okay.
So you take everything out because it's not just ocean water; it's like sewer water and so it's nasty water. So like I have friends that one I've known many, many years, and his wife. Now we've created a strong friendship. I spent a lot of time with her and their house. They closed on their house Monday, and the hurricane hit Thursday.
Oh my god.
Flooded. So
Wow.
yeah, they had to gut it, and
Had they moved in yet?
most of their stuff was.
Oh shit.
Yeah, there were two. They have two girls. Their cribs beds were in there, and then their bed. But then their son's bed was in there. All their furniture, all their kitchen.
Well, I can imagine. We're like, we finally got this house. Let's go.
Yeah, let's get it all in.
Yeah.
Yes. And they sold their other house, so they had to be out of that one to get it. All the stuff. They got 1.5 feet of water. So
Okay, not the worst.
not the worst, but I went in their house before I left, and they just gutted it all. So it's just a shell. Because I learned if it gets wet, it soaks into the drywall and whatever's in between there, but I can't think of the word I'm
The
bringing.
studs?
I don't know.
Framing?
No, the
Insulation?
insulation.
Okay.
It soaks all the way through, and you get mold like that.
So, well, it's such a humid, yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of those houses, people just had to rip everything out. My friends, they got 1.5 feet. Her sister got 3 feet. So that's up to countertops. If that gives you kind of a reference.
Yeah, because in my head I'm like, okay, 3 foot. But when you say like, okay, up to the cabinet, that's a lot of water in your house.
Like if you had an island that high.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's driving through. It's so interesting where I stayed. The most damage was trees. There were a few houses that you could see that trees were on top of, but there wasn't flooding in the neighborhood I stayed in. But literally 10 minutes away, there was flooding so high people's whole houses were full.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what does that devastation look like after the fact? Is there still water in some of these houses? Or had it...
Right now, you have to push some of the excess out, but it's so interesting because the ocean's right there, it just like retracts back.
Just like comes and goes.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is interesting. I always wondered like what that looks like afterwards. Because it comes in so quickly, and I watched videos of like the surge and whatnot, but then I guess with the same force of going back out to its natural tide.
So Helene was the first one that hit, and there was a lot of surge. That's why people's houses flooded so much. Then with Milton, there was wind and rain. So there was a lot of fear with Milton because there was going to be so much wind. All the stuff from inside people's houses was outside. So that would mean a lot in the wind and tornadoes, and then hitting other houses and cars.
Yeah.
All of that. That's why there was so much fear with that second one.
Well, and two, the ground was already just soaked. So how much rain can it handle?
Yeah, it was a very unique experience for me. I had one expectation going into my time in Florida, and that was destroyed, and I think that's okay. I'm all right with that.
Yeah.
But it was just really unique of having to sit with myself and say, this is different than what I had hoped for, and I can still make the best of my time here.
Yeah. What do you feel like your expectation was leaving? And I feel like your expectation just seeing you the week ahead of time was already having to adjust before you left.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know that I had huge expectations. I really wanted to connect with people that I knew down there and people I didn't know yet. I wanted to experience life away from my norm. I have lived here my whole life, and so getting separate from that, because here I'm Rick and Carol's daughter, or I'm Josh and Nathan's sister, or I'm the therapist, or whatever that is. And so going there, I was hoping for some separation from that.
A new label.
Just like grace.
Yeah.
Like,
You.
yes, I just get to be whatever it is I
Yeah.
want to be there.
Mhm.
And not that it's really at all different from who I am, but I didn't have an expectation. Like I said to my dad when I picked him up from the airport, we were just yapping
Mhm.
and I said, I don't know anybody here. So I don't have this like, what if I see someone or I look
Yeah.
terrible? What if I run into someone?
I can be a little bit embarrassing, and there's no
Okay.
judgment.
Yes.
Yeah. It's also Florida, so.
There's a lot going on there. My expectation was, I think, rest and connection and beach. Not really that
Yeah.
that was my whole goal. I actually only went to the beach twice while I was
I
there.
was gonna say, you sent me a few photos, but it seemed like you weren't even really at the beach.
No, I went twice, both the last week that I was there, so
Mhm.
not a ton, and that's okay with me. I literally sobbed leaving because I made a number of friends, but one very close friend that, like, I miss her. Like, that was hard for me, and that was part of what I hoped for, that I would
Oh.
have people there.
Mhm.
And I do, which is encouraging. It did just look really different than what I also think, like, as I was there, I love Florida. I loved Florida before this. I enjoy going to Florida.
Yeah.
This was my third time there this year. So like
Yeah.
I have a problem. I love Florida.
Uh-huh.
And there was so much destruction and also so much beauty that like people were struggling
I can only imagine.
and people around them were rallying to help them even if they had nothing.
I love to hear that because I just feel like to our core, we're like basic human beings who are here for each other. And it doesn't matter if we have stuff, it's taking care of one another. And we just don't get to see that as much. So I can only imagine how like heartwarming and almost overwhelming it could have been in the moment.
Yeah. Yeah. IDES is like International Something Disaster Services.
Okay.
I can't remember the whole thing. But they're connected with a church down there that I spent some time at. The people that I know down there attend this church or they're on staff at this church. And IDES was there from basically the second I got there till they're, I believe, still there. And my dad and I worked with them one day, and they are some of the hardest workers. And by the time we left, I think had done 40 projects for 40 different people. So that means they were at 40 different people's houses. Who knows how many things they did while they were there. The day my dad and I were there, we worked with an older single lady, and her apartment flooded. She only got 2 inches, which doesn't seem like a lot, but once it's in there and starts soaking in the mold, to grow, and needed to move out of her condo, but single, lives alone.
Yeah. How?
Yeah. So, moved appliances and beds and couches and china cabinets, all that kind of stuff. And
all of her life.
her whole life. Yeah. And she had said, I'm really hoping they get in here really quickly and like get things out. And nothing's moving that quickly there.
I can imagine. I mean, just all the services are probably overwhelmed too. Where do we start? Like prioritizing worst to okay.
Yeah, the displacement of everyone.
Yeah, I can only like where are people going? I don't know.
Yeah, FEMA. Well, there's FEMA housing that you can stay in, but FEMA housing is hotels that are not great. And like my friends, they're a family of 5. They have a 4-year-old, a 2-year-old, and a 1-year-old.
Gosh, yeah. So and that's not ideal.
No, they were given 1 hotel room. So that's not working for them. They're staying with in-laws, but like just the heartache and devastation of we've worked so hard for one thing and now it's completely gone.
Yeah.
And how do you readjust? How do you evaluate all of that?
Yeah. No, as we're talking, like I got goosebumps.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know that I can really put words to it of all the people affected that, like my good friends, this is their dream home.
Yeah.
The home that they hope to live in forever. and 3 days after buying it, completely destroyed.
Yeah.
Like, and I got to spend a lot of time with her. She's at home with kids during the day, and I had lots of breaks and days off and all the things. And so her and I spent quite a bit of time together, and just the resilience, the amazing strength and dedication, and we're going to get through this despite the difficulty.
I just feel like that would just have to be your attitude.
Mm-hmm.
You don't really have much of any other option.
No. It was interesting to hear her talk. They moved into this neighborhood her parents live in as well, and their house was elevated, so there was no damage, which is amazing. But they were talking to some neighbors after the first hurricane who were in their house sitting on their wet couch and just like deer in the headlights of what do we do? How do we take next steps? And I think we see that a lot with clients and just people. We had expectations for one thing. Our lives haven't gone that way, but how do we move forward?
Yeah. This is like a total readjustment.
Yeah.
Not just like a little thing. This is like years or months of goals now swept away, literally.
Yeah. And I learned a lot of the houses that are on the water that were destroyed, people moved into years and years ago that cost a fraction.
Oh, I'm sure they were cheaper at one point.
Well, they're $1 million homes now.
Oh, absolutely.
So you buy them at $100,000, $200,000, $400,000, and now they're $1 million homes, and you could afford it then, but maybe you can't now.
Yeah.
And how do you rebuild? So a lot of the houses are just going up for sale as is.
Wow. Well, I'm sure there's some worry of, is this the trajectory as far as hurricane season?
They still have a month left.
Yeah. Well, I saw there was another, I think it's still just a tropical storm brewing.
It is interesting I had the opportunity while I was there to not necessarily be a therapist, but
I
never turned my therapist lens off. So like I got to just connect with people. I mean, I saw my regularly scheduled clients, but with people there, and I'm a cheerleader for my clients here.
Yeah.
And see resilience more so than I think some of my clients see in themselves. But they're getting to observe the resilience is astounding. And the ability to just like, okay, let's get up and go and just figure it out. That I don't think everywhere gets to experience of like, not everywhere has hurricanes, like
no,
that kind of thing. Or like we have tornadoes here.
Yeah.
But it's been what, 3 or 4 years since the Andover tornado. And then before that it'd been 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
And I think that was in Oakland. Maybe
well, yeah, Greensburg in like 2005, which was the category 5. And
completely wiped out.
Yeah.
Every year they get they get hurricanes or have the possibility.
Well, I think some of the stuff too going on there is just like us and tornadoes were watching, and people were watching the hurricane and not taking it seriously as this is going to be destructive. And I think people weren't expecting it to be as bad because it hasn't been.
No. That's always interesting, the expectations we have of this is either going to be really terrible or this isn't going to be very bad with natural disasters and even just daily life.
Well, I was just thinking that as I was saying that out loud, I was like, how silly of us to have these expectations for natural disasters that we have zero control over.
We do have control over us.
Well, yes.
To be able to like leave the situation or go to safety. And I think it'd be shocking to know the number of people who stayed during both that witnessed a lot.
I would absolutely not want to be there. I was watching some like people had cameras on their house and they had like the feed and I was watching. It was making me uncomfortable and distressed. I was like, I could only imagine somebody being in their house as they see out their window water like sloshing up against it when the window's so high.
Yep. There's a lady that I follow. Her handles Dr. Beach Gem. Have you ever seen her? She's a doctor in St. Pete, Florida.
Wait, I think I have. You probably have. She's got short hair?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. And she usually wears like a surgical cap.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. She has to paddleboard.
Yeah. And she had game cameras in and around her house for Helene. And I think for Milton too, but Helene, her house flooded like up to almost the ceiling. And you just see that like all of a sudden, basically, on the camera, there's nothing, and then it's full.
Ugh. I know I think, was in the hospital. Her family evacuated. I think since they obviously had the resources, she got a lot of stuff out, and then she was in the hospital.
Yep. I think,
but later. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It is interesting of you do what you can, but ultimately that might not protect everything.
Yeah.
How do you move forward? This week sitting in my office, and even the last few weeks with telehealth, sitting with clients, okay, how do they move forward? Whatever it is, that resilience, and maybe they had an expectation for one thing and it didn't turn out that way. How can they move forward, and how can I support that? And like, how do we get out of being stuck?
That's a question I feel like I ask myself all the time.
Yeah. I struggle with that even myself, of like, okay, I'm battling one thing. How do I get out of it? How do I not I'm not pitying myself, but like, how do I separate? This is happening to me, but I can move forward differently.
Yeah, I think I struggle with that as far as like it feels all consuming. So I don't feel like there's an option of change. And that's what I really appreciate with Zach is he's faced a lot of adversities. So he doesn't necessarily ruminate and dwell like I do. And he's like, okay, let's go on. Let's move forward. And I'm like, I love that. But also like, to me, it gets so intense as far as like mind and body that it just feels like there's no other option.
Yeah.
So I have to like reflect and say like, what's really holding me up? How can I look at this differently? And sometimes, well, I think most of the time, I don't give him enough credit, but he offers me a different perspective that sometimes I stubbornly ignore.
Fair. I was thinking about that. We're not meant to do life alone. Like, doing life alone isn't healthy for us. And like, you have Zach as that support of how can I look at this differently? Or what's your experience in this same situation? How are you moving on or moving forward? You're experiencing it together. And this last month, I've just seen such a need for community and connection and being with people that I think sometimes I see this in my office quite a bit of people want to suffer in silence and not allow anybody to offer a different perspective or give them help or whatever that looks like because they have an expectation or they think I can handle this on my own.
I think people feel like they're a burden, or this might be an unpopular opinion. I think some people feel like it's a punishment to themselves to sit with it to that extent. You know, that's more of a dark thought, but yeah.
I don't disagree. I hadn't thought about it that way.
Again, the horrors of what happens in Florida, you're seeing this again back to like the roots of community and connection, which is what I've addressed to so many clients of like, we're just on our phones and we're so connected, but we're not connected. In a society right now, we just don't give two shits about one another.
No, we don't. And I think even not at all to get political, because I'm not a political person and I don't think that's a fair reason to fight with people because we're all afraid to have our own opinion.
Yeah.
But right now we have an election coming that is really, really, really dividing people
It is so divisive.
hugely. And I think that's super sad and scary.
Yeah.
Especially like our world's not in a great place right now. And despite political views or whatever, being able to rely on friends and family, and that can make all the difference.
Again, support. I think we haven't recognized how badly we need support.
I to get a little personal here, I've never felt as alone as I did my first 2 weeks in Florida.
Oh, wow.
I don't really experience loneliness. I feel like I have a really great support system and people that I can connect with. I have my parents, siblings, friends. I have you I talk to every day. Yeah, too. I've got great friends outside of this friendship.
Yeah.
And I even have extended family I could reach out to if I ever need it. Like I have community and my parents' friends that I have people. I've never felt that like I'm alone. I don't have the support. I felt alone. And I had to figure out evacuation and where to go. And
I can only imagine that. I felt bad for you. Well, and I didn't want to overwhelm you, but I was like,
yeah,
you know what's going on? Like, I was like,
yeah.
And then I talked to your dad. I'm like, we both just agreed it was a bad time and kind of made light of the situation.
Yeah.
But I was worried.
Fair. And I think to some degree, because I could have come home. I have a home to come back to. My stuff is safe. I'm safe. I had Lady, my dog, with me. We were both safe, like all that. So I felt this immense guilt of like, I shouldn't be feeling any sort of way because people have lost their homes and everything. And like, I'm fine. I can go home. So I was trying to figure that out of like, do I just go home and call it a loss? Like, what do I
tried, but not a good time.
Yeah. So I have a really different perspective and point of view, and I think ultimately will help me in the therapy room of understanding that true like loneliness. And I don't know that I'd say depression, but potentially this like dip into a depression. I'm like, I had texts that I couldn't even get myself to reply to, and like I just laid in bed and obviously taking care of Lady and myself in most ways, but I see it now of people struggling. They have an expectation. It doesn't work out.
That was so debilitating.
Yes. So, and I'm fine. I have everything. I have a home to come home to. I'm safe. All the things. But in those moments, it was difficult. And then to see other people really struggling, that was really difficult.
Yeah. So negativity is contagious and you're in the zone and you have this devastation around you. How do you pull through that?
And the week I evacuated, I'd met a young gal. She's about my age, and she got married 2 weeks before Helene.
Okay.
So newlyweds. Then Helene flooded their apartment, so then they had to move out. They were in their apartment. Okay. It flooded. They had to get out through a window.
Oh my God.
Find a high ground somewhere to stay. Then the week of Milton, we evacuated together. Which I met them a week prior.
You and your like extroversion of like connecting and clicking with people like that. See, I would not. I don't think I would know how to do that.
It was a lot. And part of why I evacuated with them is they have a dog as well. So we got an Airbnb that had a backyard. So like both of us could have that. Share the costs, all that kind of thing.
Well, again, I don't really know you. We have a similar goal. Let's take care of our dogs. Let's figure this out together. Complete strangers.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it worked out. So grateful for that. But like I was with them. They lost a lot of the stuff in their apartment. All their furniture was destroyed. Newlyweds. Then when they got back to the place that they had been staying, they couldn't stay anymore. So then had to reevaluate and all this stuff. So there's that battle of like, things aren't working out for me. Things also aren't working out for them. And like, they're in a worse off position than I am. Why am I feeling this way? That comparison
Yeah,
really
that
scary.
devalues your own experience. Though it's different, I think you can appreciate it is different.
Different. Yeah.
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 But also, I don't know, being an empathetic being as therapists, hopefully most of us are, you're probably I would take on a lot of the surroundings too. So I'm sure that would put me in a funk.
Yeah. It, yeah. It was really cool to see people coming together and supporting one another. And Kayla, one of the gals I spent a lot of time with while I was there, when I first got there, they were moving out of one house trying to get into all the things.
Yeah.
And we helped pack up, my mom and I, their house, and she had people volunteering to watch her kids and make her dinner and organize
I just
clothing.
love that.
Yes, it was really amazing to see that. Though this probably felt isolating and scary and unknown, and she's got littles and their town's been destroyed, that people rally and it's okay to rely on them. And also, there's a lot of feelings. Like when I left, I shed some tears and I said, I'm sorry, this is stupid, whatever. And my dad's standing there, he's like, feel all your feelings, Grace. Your dad's like, which like was a good reminder. It's okay. Like, yeah, it's okay to feel all of that, but also can be overwhelming.
I think overwhelm is a really great word for this situation.
Natural disasters.
Yeah. How do you think your lens will shift or has shifted from your trip therapeutically?
Yeah. In some ways, my lens has shifted and I have more sympathy, which I was already pretty sympathetic.
Yeah. You don't know until you're there.
You know. Yeah. And even like my own emotional experience while I was there and then seeing things, I just have a different point of view. I also will say I have struggled a little bit as a therapist of like, with a few clients, like there are bigger problems in the world and you're unwilling to shift and help yourself. Like, not at all that I am critical or harsh or want to shame people at all.
No.
But also like, okay, let's find the solution and like get on with it, because there is other stuff going on that I do see some of my clients just sitting with it and not creating change. And I struggle with that a little bit. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Does that seem harsh?
No, I get where you're coming from, and I don't want clients to ever feel like, oh, I shouldn't talk about this because it seems menial. No, we'll talk about it so we can have growth. But sometimes it's like we're still here, and it's like, coming from a place of having, quite a bit of worldly experience. It's like, I've seen some shit. Yeah, I think your day can improve. I think things will get better from here. You need to find some acceptance with that.
Yes. And I need to clarify. It's not that I don't want to hear about it.
No.
I want to hear about it. I just want you to participate in change. Like, that kind of thing. Like, back to our favorite saying.
Yeah.
If nothing changes, then nothing changes. So, I don't know. Like, if that doesn't happen.
Well, what are we doing?
Yeah.
That's where I get stuck with clients sometimes.
Yeah. I don't know. It's not that I've hardened.
Yeah.
I am now more probably going to expect a participation. And if my clients aren't participating in growth and change, I don't know how much longer I could come alongside them.
Yeah. Well, I think that's growth as a therapist. Yeah, that's just knowing like what you can offer people, and maybe it's just not the right fit. You're not their cup of tea, as we like to say.
Not their cup of tea. Yeah, ultimately, if nothing changes,
nothing changes.
We wanted to say thank you for listening today. You can find our Instagram at 2View Therapy and view our merchandise through our Etsy shop at 2View Therapy.
Please rate, review, and subscribe to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere you get your podcasts. If you are in a mental health crisis, contact your local crisis center, or you can call and text 988.